brother, Ambassador Hashem Dajani, Comrade Uri Davis, my colleagues from the Diplomatic Corps, comrades and friends. I would like to begin by joining the message of congratulations for International Women's Day, and specifically to convey this message to the women of Palestine. Secondly, I would like to say that I congratulate those that took the decision to celebrate or to hold this event at Freedom Park. Freedom Park is a symbol of the struggle for justice, as it is a symbol of the damaging effects of injustice. It is also a symbol of solidarity and how solidarity can go beyond countries, beyond borders, even beyond continents. And for Cuba, Freedom Park is a symbol of the relationship between Cuba and South Africa. We would say of the relationship between Cuba and Africa. It's a relationship that was born in solidarity, and that still today, it's a relationship that is built on and it's inspired by solidarity. In this park, as was mentioned before, we find a magnificent wall that treasures the names of over 95,000 people that lost their lives or suffered as victims of oppression in Africa, but also people that lost their lives in the struggle against oppression and for liberation in Africa. Among those names are the names of more than 2,060 compatriots of mine, Cubans, that lost their lives in Africa's soil in their internationalist duty to contribute to the struggles for liberation and for freedom and justice in this continent. We believe that Freedom Park can be seen as an important shrine from which to amplify and to propagate the call for solidarity with the people of Palestine. In 1947, the UN General Assembly adopted Resolution 181, which stipulated the partition of Palestine. 1 year later, that resolution of the General Assembly of the UN led to the Al-Nakba tragedy, as a result of which over 3/4 of the territory of Palestine was grabbed by force. Over 530 cities and villages were destroyed, and roughly 80% of the population was either expelled or displaced from their land of birth. The reason for this tragedy was not a natural or climatic catastrophe. It wasn't even an international conflict. It was the open ambition of the Zionists to impose a racist and religious state at the expense of the territory that had been inhabited by the Palestinians for over 2,000 years. For this, the Zionists counted on the support of the former colonial powers, which were interested in establishing a European state in the heart of the Middle East. The event could be described as one of the great tragedies of the immediate post-World War period. Yet the majority of the governments that then spoke on behalf of the international community simply sat silent or complicit with what was happening. And we have to say that it is a crime that was only possible because of the strong support of the governments of the United States and Great Britain specifically. It is a history similar to that of apartheid South Africa. in which a brutal and hateful regime survived so many years because the powerful countries that had the capacity to wield influence, to make a difference, and to support the struggle of the people of South Africa refused to do so. And it's the same thing that happens with Palestine. Today, the people of Palestine continue to be the victims of aggression. Israel continues to occupy their land, to destroy their infrastructure, to murder their citizens. In 2014, less than 2 years ago, the world witnessed the aggressions and the massacres perpetrated by Israel against the Gaza Strip, which provoked an unprecedented crisis of terror, of death, and continued destruction of the territory of Palestine. Those that don't see this, or those that refuse to recognize it, are simply acting with double standards and with hypocrisy. Cuba has always been at the side of the cause of Palestine. Cuba voted against and refused to support Resolution 181 in 1947. In 1973, the revolutionary government of Cuba broke diplomatic relations with Israel, and to this day, Cuba has no diplomatic or official links with the government of Israel of any type. We categorically support all actions aimed at finding a fair and durable solution to what is a fundamental conflict of the Middle East. And this solution inevitably demands the real and effective exercise by the people of Palestine to the inalienable right to build a state within the borders prior to 1967 and with East Jerusalem as its capital. We also firmly support Palestine's membership or full membership of the United Nations and the full exercise of their right as any other member country of the United Nations to participate actively or as actively as they wish in all bodies and organs of the United Nations. Now, the General Assembly in 2012 passed by a majority vote and with the opposition of some Western countries the decision to grant observer status to Palestine at the United Nations. But observer status is not enough. Palestine has the right to be a full member country of the United Nations. Now, it is the Security Council of the UN, the body that has a prerogative to take a decision if Palestine can be a member or not. And it has been stalling. And the Security Council must stop stalling this decision and without delay determine the membership of Palestine as every other country to become a full member of the United Nations, as was requested by the Palestinian Authority in 2011, and a decision that has the support of the overwhelming majority of the international community. Now, international solidarity can and should play a role in exercising pressure on the permanent members of the Security Council, specifically on the government of the United States, who is the sole responsible for there not to be a decision by the Security Council. Cuba has also reiterated its support to the Palestinian Authority and to the Palestinian Liberation Organization as the only and legitimate representative of the people of Palestine. We have reaffirmed our absolute condemnation to the continued expansion of the illegal settlements by Israel in the occupied territory, and including those in East Jerusalem. Everybody knows and understands that this is a practice against international law. And that again, it is only possible because of the complicit attitude of North America and a good part of Europe. When I say North America, I'm not talking about Mexico. Repeated resolutions of the UN General Assembly and other Security Council have called for an end to the construction and expansion of the illegal settlements and of the wall, to the demolition of homes, to the excavations, to the confiscation of Palestinian land, to the eviction of Palestinian families from East Jerusalem, to the transfer of settlers, to the imposition of arbitrary and racist restrictions of movement like the ones that existed in apartheid South Africa, to the systematic destruction of Palestinian infrastructure and property, and to the provocative acts of settlers against sacred sites. Yet, as we all know, nothing happens. Israel continues to act and continues to be allowed to act with impunity. The international community has a responsibility in this huge injustice. The UN Security Council has to act, and it must be made to act to make Israel stop committing these crimes. And the United States has to stop blocking the decisions that will lead to that. But we all know that the experience is well known. South Africa knows it, Cuba knows it, and all those that have struggled for justice know it. The powerful will not act unless they are compelled to do so. And therefore, it is necessary to repeat and to multiply events like this one, to be able to educate the young, to educate the old, and to be able to amplify our call and the voices that could make a powerful movement uniting in solidarity for the cause of Palestine. We all need to raise our voices and to denounce these crimes. The government of Israel should not be allowed to get away with these crimes, and the governments of Europe and the government of the United States and others should not be allowed to get away with their complicity. Cuba, the people of Cuba that have known and enjoyed international sympathy and support, understand the strength and the value of solidarity. And the same goes for South Africa, whose people counted on international support in their long and difficult struggle and in their moment of victory against oppression, against apartheid, against racism in this country. So we all understand that this is a struggle of the people of Palestine, but it is for the international community and for all those that believe and that preach justice to support, to stand up, and to share with the people of Palestine the solidarity that they deserve. Thank you very much.